Good evening and welcome to the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and we are covering a pretty heavy topic, the problem with the gay community. And the audio hopefully sounds a lot better than my other episodes because we are recording in a studio, so that is exciting. So what do I mean when I say the problem with the gay community? It's less about individuals and more about the culture and the scene and expectations on being a gay person or a bi person, however you identify. And I just wanted to bring light to a very dark situation going on, not just in Vancouver, but around the world. And I have some information, some statistics, and we're going to cover that all. But I wanted to tell you a little story I had heard recently about a guy who flew in to Vancouver and by a sugar daddy, and he was basically continuously dosed with methamphetamine. And according to the person who told me this story, they were penetrating methamphetamine into his anus to keep him wanting, to keep him willing. Now, I don't say this to air anybody's business out. There's no identifying factors there, but that is rape. That is sexual assault. Keeping someone high on drugs, knowingly or not knowingly, so that they will continue to engage in sexual activities with you or a group of people is sexual assault. And it's too common, and not too common, but too accepted in the gay community to use, quote, drug enhancing or sex enhancing drugs. And I think we are headed toward a very dark era of the LGBTQ plus community. So the digital age has fundamentally altered how sexual minority men navigate connections. That just means gay people or people part of the LGBTQIA plus community, making the hookup scene more accessible but also more complex. A Vancouver study that found that 90.2% of gay men aged 30 and over have looked for hookups online. While older generations have historically relied on internet classifieds, bathhouses, or outdoor cruising, younger men have heavily utilized mobile applications to facilitate hookups. And I want to pause just for a second to say I don't think there's anything wrong with having sex, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being gay whatsoever. I'm bisexual myself. I just want people to be safe, to make decisions that they're going to be comfortable with the next day, and I want people to be informed on the dangers of what our culture has become. Across all age groups of queer Canadian men, casual sex remains the primary sex-seeking activity, though younger demographics frequently date with the intention of finding a partner. And research indicates that for some young sexual and gender minority adults, hooking up serves as a coping mechanism in response to the stressors of holding a minority identity. And so a sexual and gender minority, SGM, is just people who are a part of the LGBTQIA plus community, right? So drug use, addiction, and party and play, quote, or PNP, or chemsex, is the intersection of drug use and sexual encounters. Commonly referred to as party and play, PNP, or chemsex, it's a significant health and safety crisis. LGBTQ plus individuals are disproportionately impacted by substance dependency. LGBTQ plus populations are between 3 and 4 times more likely to become dependent on drugs or alcohol compared to the general population. In Vancouver, an estimated 3 out of 4 LGBT plus individuals suffer from mental health and addiction issues. Furthermore, childhood trauma affects approximately 34% of gay men. National estimates suggest that between 5 and 20% of Canadian gay, bisexual, and other men who have sex with men participate in PNP. The Momentum study, which focused on gay and bisexual men in Vancouver, found that over a 6-month period, 19.6% used crystal meth, 19.1% used GHB, and 12% used ketamine. Another Vancouver-based study of 774 men found that 19% used meth in the past 6 months. This is recently, in the past 6 months, with 21% of those individuals using at least weekly. And we're going to take a pause right there. Meth, I have used meth. I used it for probably 6 months or something before I had to sit myself down and quit. It's a evil drug. I don't think drugs are bad as a whole. And I think it's not my business what someone uses. But meth, makes you incredibly horny, to put it bluntly, and you don't eat, so you lose a bunch of weight, which might seem like good things to certain people within this culture and community, but it also is incredibly harmful to your health. It literally eats away at your body. The chemicals that are in methamphetamine is insane. It destroys the person, not just physically, not just mentally, but spiritually. And it's a hard drug to stop. Thank God I wasn't full-blown addicted to it. But it took a handful of experiences and words for me to decide that I couldn't do it any longer. So, I'm just looking up what's in it. So methamphetamine is a powerfully and highly addictive central nervous stimulant. So there's solvents and fuels, acetone, which is found in nail polish remover, lantern fuel, gasoline, benzene, and ether. The acids and bases, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, which is found in drain cleaner, and sodium hydroxide. And there's lithium, red phosphorus from matchbook strike pads, and hydrous ammonia, which is fertilizer, and iodine crystals. And there's so much more shit in there, depending on where you get it from. You never know what they're putting in it. So among participants who use meth, 77% reported that at least half the time they used the drug, it was prior to or during sex. This practice is explicitly linked to increased instances of condomless sex, group sex, and transactional sex. So this means that if they weren't high on meth, they would have preferred a condom or would have had a condom used. They probably wouldn't have engaged in group sex, and they probably wouldn't have sold their body for whatever it was they wanted, right? It's outlandish and it's insane how normalized this has to become. And it's definitely not, super widespread at the moment, but the trajectory that we are heading towards as a community, it's definitely going to look at like that increaseness, and we want to protect ourselves, and we want to protect the other people in the community. And in terms of sexual assault, rape, and vulnerability, these are some information on that. So sexual violence within the LGBTQ plus community is severely discussed, and the statistics reveal a profound crisis regarding safety and bodily autonomy. Disproportionate violence. The rate of violent victimization is significantly higher for sexual minority Canadians, LGBTQ, and that's at 10.2% of sexual minority Canadians experience violence. And for straight Canadians, they experience violence at a rate of 1.7%. 10.2%, 1.7%. That's a massive difference. And LGBTQ youth under the age of 30 are 2.56 times more likely to experience sexual violence compared to those over 30. Research suggests that 28% of gay men experience sexual assault committed by an intimate partner. Furthermore, a campus survey found that the rate of sexual assault victimization reported by gay men, 24%, was nearly equal to the rate reported by heterosexual women. And between 5 and 10% of sexual assaults against gay men are committed by heterosexual males as a form of, quote, gay bashing. Almost 10% of LGBTQ individuals report experiencing sexual trauma specifically driven by bias against their sexual orientation. And I want to take a pause right there and discuss those 4 pieces of information. So heterosexual males sexually assault gay men at a rate of 5 to 10%. Or let me rephrase that. 5 and 10% of gay men have experienced sexual assault from a quote unquote heterosexual male because they were gay, because out of a homophobic ideology, whatever you want to call it. That's insane. That is crazy. I just want to get through some more information, and then we'll have a deeper or a more actual discussion. So LGBTQ plus individuals are 3 to 4 times more likely to be drug and alcohol dependent than the general population. 1 in 5 gay or bi men in Vancouver reported using crystal meth in the last 6 months. 77% of those using meth report using it specifically to facilitate or enhance sex. GHB/GHBL is used as a compliance tool because it suppresses the gag reflex and induces a state of suggestibility or total unconsciousness. GHB is an evil drug. Some people love it. Some people take it for fun. In my view, if you're using drugs, you're not creating havoc in your own life, and you're not harming people, and you're not harming yourself. It's nobody else's business. But GHB is such an insidious drug. You can slip it into a drink. You can, however, or you can have someone take it with you knowingly and then just give them a bigger dose. And I say this because it is absolutely dangerous to use GHB. When you're gone, when you're in the, quote, G hole, you don't have any memory of what happened whatsoever. You're there and you're gone for the next. Then you're waking up somewhere and you don't know what happened. You don't know how you got there. And I want to, especially the younger gay or bisexual or curious, people around the world, if you're not comfortable doing drugs, and if someone, then don't do them. If someone's forcing you or heavily pressuring you to take certain drugs or drugs in general, leave if you can. And if you're going to go meet up with random people on some app or website, let a friend know where you are. Send your location. Take extra steps to ensure that you make it home that night. And, meet in public places. And do not be afraid to say no. And if your no is not respected, and if things escalate, call the police. Leave if you're able to, leave the situation as soon as you can. And if needed, call the police. If a sexual assault does occur, go to a hospital. I'm going to share some resources that you can go to within Metro Vancouver after I'm done reading some more of this information. And that's another thing I noticed in the gay community and the LGBTQ community, is that our looks and our bodies are almost as used as a form of currency. Maybe not necessarily with money, but there's not a lot of solidarity. There's not a lot of friendship. I mean, I'm sure there is tons of good stuff going on, but at least specifically looking into hookup culture or dating apps or whatever, it's about your body, what you look like, how much money do you got, who are you friends with. It's not normal. In my view, it's not normal what's going on. It's getting toxic. It's getting kind of sick. I think things are getting slightly better, but you got to be aware of these things, and we can't just sweep it under the rug and that won't ever happen to me, or I would never do that, or whatever, because this is the reality of it. There's people getting drugged, there's people getting raped, there's people getting abused, hit, beat up, and it's disgusting. And it's not just like that statistic with the heterosexual males sexually assaulting gay men just because they're gay. This is something that's almost propagated within the gay community. Obviously, it's not broadcasted to the world, which is why I've chosen to talk about it, because no one seems to want to, and no one seems to have. Maybe one or two people I could think of, but in general, no one wants to talk about the ugly side of hooking up or being gay or being bi in today's modern world. And I am honestly sick to my stomach. The stories that I've heard, the horror stories. So, the destination trap. Vancouver is a primary destination for, quote, sugar daddy tourism. High-cost living makes young people susceptible to, quote, all expenses paid trips, which are used as a pretext for total physical control. Apps like Sniffies and Grindr lack mandatory safety verification like Tinder or Uber, making it easier for predators to create burner accounts to lure victims to private residences or hotels. And I want to call out Grindr especially. Why don't you have ID verification for your app? It's insane that as of 2026, March 5th, Grindr has no inclination to ensure that the users are of age. I know I was I was using Grindr when I was like fucking 13, 12. I shouldn't have had even the option to download the app until I reached 18. And I know a lot of other people who have used Grindr when they were younger too. Is it money? Grinder doesn't care about child abuse. They'd rather keep the money that they get from ads from all these, young people on their apps. So I'm calling out Grinder. Grinder, do fucking better. It's disgusting that you haven't had a mandatory safety verification in place for years now. It should have been in place since the start. But I hope that you can do better. And Vancouver has specific queer focus support health initiative for men, but the prevention gap remains wide. And so what this means is that when a terrible event happens, we have resources and we have groups and we have phone numbers. We have things in place to take care of people who have gone through sexual assault. But how do we prevent any of this from happening to begin with? Or how can we at least minimize this happening? And so I have some information for you. I just gotta find it. So I will get you the numbers and the resources soon. You can also Google them anytime and go to any hospital, but I will get you those numbers. We're gonna continue going down the information. So meth, the physics of trauma. Meth prevents the body from feeling pain or exhaustion, allowing for physical quote-unquote performance or endurance, like being penetrated by multiple people, that would be physically impossible or agonizingly painful while sober. And it's insidious. Don't take drugs. You don't need them. And if people around you are doing them and you're uncomfortable and you have no want to do it, get away. If you're meeting somebody or going somewhere and you get a bad feeling, fucking leave. So here's some more numbers surrounding sexual violence and victimization. So violent victimization for sexual minorities in Canada is 10.2% versus 1.7% for the straight population. I know we've gone through this. So in PNP, party and play environments, the presence of drugs is often used as a legal or social quote-unquote gray area to dismiss rape. Legally, under Canadian law, intoxication to the point of being unable to understand the risk and nature of the act means consent cannot exist. Over 90% of sexual assaults against men in the community go unreported due to fear of stigma, quote-unquote victim blaming regarding their drug use, or fear of being quote-unquote outed. That is insane. That is disgusting. And I've met people. I met these two people 3 years ago in Vancouver. And one of them owned the apartment and the other one didn't. And they were using meth. And one of them was hot. The other one was this old gross guy. And he was getting mad at me because I didn't want to look at him. I didn't want to do anything with him. Like, I've had, a handful of, not countless either, but, more than what should have happened. Weird, gross experiences with men who, A, think they have some say-so about if I have sex with them or not, or they get pissed off and angry when I don't want to have sex anymore, or if I come too early. And I don't say this to be vulgar. I say this as the reality of the situation is consent is to be freely given. And consent can be withdrawn at any time. Doesn't matter if you're mid-sex. Doesn't matter if you're just before or whatever, if you remove your consent, it has to stop at that moment. Not a second later, not a second more, not wait till I come, not whatever. I don't think this is funny, but it's a very dark topic to talk about, and I've been right in the middle of it on so many occasions growing up, and I want to minimize and I want to help try and prevent more of this stuff from happening, because it's not necessary, it's not needed, it's not wanted, and it's disgusting. Like the fact that over 90% of sexual assaults against men in the community go unreported due to a fear of stigma, victim blaming regarding their drug use, or fear of being outed. And a lot of gay men don't act like you're fucking all high and mighty because you're gay. A lot of you are fucking evil. Fucking evil. And you're rude and you're pretentious. Just because you like men does not make you better than other people. And I just got to put that out there. Anyways. So in London, men in the, quote, chemsex scene are 500% more likely to report non-consensual sex. Did you just... Let's let that sink in. 500% of men in the chemsex scene are So if you enter the chemsex scene in the UK, you're basically guaranteed to get raped. The act of slipping drugs, GHB or meth, into a drink or booty bumping, quote, booty bumping, which is inserting drugs into your anus to get high that way, without explicit consent, is aggravated sexual assault. And again, that story I said earlier, that man was sexually assaulted. You know, to keep someone high, to perform, to want it, so that they could just do whatever they wanted. That is disgusting. And to the people who do that to others, there's a special place that I'm not going to tell you about, and I'm not going to threaten anybody online, but burn in hell. Burn in hell. And the myth of, quote, the scene. There is a pervasive lie, cultural lie, that if you agree to a P&P hookup, you agree to whatever happens. This is the facts. Consent is revocable at any time and does not cover acts not explicitly discussed. Like, this is a bit minor compared to the stories we've gone over, but I'm new. Well, not new, I've been here before, but I recently moved over here, and I was with this guy, and I told him before we met up, I was like, I don't want to kiss. I do not want to kiss. And he disgustingly and arrogantly started making out with me, and literally like put his weight on me to the point where like I could not like move. Like I literally was like, and then like, I don't want to fucking kiss you, dude. Like, it was disgusting. Disgusting. And you know, these hookup apps, these dating apps, whatever you want to call them, are not doing enough because they profit off of our trauma and our pain. And I don't think hookup culture is necessarily bad. I don't think having sex or gay sex or whatever sex is bad. And I think it should be more talked about. And I think it should be more accepted in society, because it's about time people get the fuck over themselves. And it's about time that we start protecting our community and making people aware of the dangers of chemsex and doing drugs in general. And you know, the dangers of hooking up, because you don't know, as much as you want to think you're safe and you're okay, you don't know. You don't know who someone is. You don't know what's going to happen necessarily, you know. So it's always good to, you know, have someone have your location, and just tell them, hey, I'm going here. If I don't message you by this time, like maybe like, create a safety plan, essentially, Like it's better to be safe than dead and raped, It's not like your body, your life is, worth more than a couple hookups, So in Canada, this is the Criminal Code of Canada. Consent. So what is the meaning of consent? Consent under the Criminal Code is voluntary agreement to engage in sexual activity, the capacity of that. No consent is obtained if the complainant is incapable of consenting for any reason. Legal capacity to consent disappears if a person cannot understand the nature, risks, and identity of the partner. Incoherence, or quote-unquote passing out, is a hard legal stop. And that brings me, like, there was this time where I was like, 3 years ago, I was so tired, and I was at this guy's hotel room, and we were laying on his bed, and I was literally like full on passed out on accident. And I wake up, and he's like putting a condom on, and like he's like, "Don't worry, I didn't fuck you." And it's like, "Don't worry, I didn't fuck you." And it's like, I was just like flabbergasted. I'm like, this is so like bizarre, and like I think sex is natural. I think sex is good. I like sex. But, I don't want it every fucking day. I don't want to be traumatized. I don't want my body to go through vicious and vigorous penetration. At least not every fucking day, or unconsensually, or high. And with that, if you're drunk or if you're high, your capability of consenting disappears. That's so true. Like, it's a very slippery slope, chemsex, and it's a slope I do not want to go down whatsoever. I'm 14 months sober today as I'm recording this, and as it's being released, 2026 0305 March 5th, 14 months sober. And so even I have to be like, okay, like if someone's drinking, like if someone says they're drinking or they're high, I'm like, okay, like we can't meet up, we can't hook up, like it's just not gonna work. That's literally like, it's rape if I were to like knowingly, hook up with someone who's intoxicated, even if they were wanting, even if they were willing, even it doesn't matter. They're intoxicated. Like it's a no-go, absolutely never. So legal capacity to consent disappears if a person cannot understand the nature, risks, and identity of the partner. And so, yeah, like pretending to be someone you're not, like that's pretty common on these quote-unquote dating apps for gay people, like lying about your age, lying about your name, lying about this, lying about who you are. Like, it's deranged. You want to fuck somebody so bad that you're going to tell me that you're 30 or 28, but you're actually 40, or you're actually 35, or you say you're 29, but you're actually 30. It doesn't matter. That's getting someone to consent under false pretext. That's rape. So overcoming resistance and administering stupefying drug. It is an offense, indictable offense, to administer a quote-unquote stupefying or overpowering drug with the intent to assist in committing an indictable offense, like sexual assault. And penalty for doing this is up to life imprisonment. Key insights: this applies even if they don't use physical violence. Using meth or GHB to quote-unquote overpower someone's ability to resist is a life sentence crime. This isn't just, a slap on the wrist or whatever. If you do that to someone, you can face life in prison. And I honestly hope every single person who does this spends life rotting away in prison. I honestly do. So, Section 271 under the Criminal Code, a conviction leads to mandatory registration on the National Sex Offender Registry. I do not know in Canada if that's made public. I do not know. So, I know in the United States it is public, but usually community police will put out a statement saying so, that this person is dangerous and so on and so forth. So the metrics of how drugs are weaponized in Vancouver. So crystal meth, the prevalence of around 20% of gay or bi men in Vancouver used meth in the last 6 months. 77 of those users used it specifically for sex. And meth creates a quote-unquote state of hypervigilance followed by a complete loss of physical pain markers. It allows for quote-unquote extreme performance that results in severe tissue damage, trauma that the body would naturally reject if sober. And I've met people who just casually do it. You know, I go meet them and they're just casually doing it like it's no big deal. And it's like, you are insane. I don't want to be around it. I don't want to be around people who do it. You know, it's a dangerous, evil, insidious drug, just like GHB is. And so people use GHB for compliance. It's used to lower someone's inhibition. But often results in G-holing, which means G-holing is just, you're gone. You're like, you know, if you've drinking before and you've blacked out, it's similar to that. But, you know, with GHB, it's just, you're in, you're present, and then you're out. And you come back in and you have no clue what happened. You could wake up on the side of the fucking road and just thought you got drunk at the bar and like happened to fall asleep on the, no, actually you were spiked with GHB, got raped in the hotel room, and then left on the side of the road. Like, shit like this actually happens, and it's not talked about. And GHB, I found this heartbreaking, but GHB suppresses the gag reflex, allowing for aggressive or dangerous oral acts that the victim physically cannot reject or reflexively stop. That is disgusting. Not the act, or let me rephrase, not the act of using GHB or people who do GHB, safely and consensually, but it's insidious that, first off, oh my goodness, Lord have mercy. And this is why it's so dangerous for this to get normalized and to be acceptable in our culture of hookups and gay people and how we interact with each other and what's expected. You know, no one should be expected to do drugs. Nobody should feel pressured to do drugs or have sex or to hook up or to have a threesome or a foursome or whatever it is. This is not normal for anyone, anywhere. Shit like this is not normal. You don't hear straight people doing this. Obviously, women and men who are straight get sexually assaulted, they get drugged and stuff, but it's not a part of the culture of young people dating or on the apps or that they use or whatever. But it seems to be a very common theme and thing to be accepted and everyone knows about, but nobody wants to talk about it or need, it's just there's something deeper going on and it needs to be addressed at a community level. And stealth dosing, administering these drugs rectally or in a drink without explicit sober permission is aggravated assault. And just and I have it out for old gay men. First off, you don't need to hook up with anyone below the age of 40. If you're fucking 50 or 60 or 40 is your max that you can go down, and 30 or 40, it's just weird and it's fucking gross. how like older men prey on young gay or bi men. And all of this just so you can fucking come? You're gonna drug and rape somebody because you just needed to come? Is that all that person's worth to you? And then it comes to prevention. What can you do to make sure you're not in those situations? If you feel unsafe, leave. If you need to, call someone. If you need to, call the police and report. If you need to, go to the hospital. If you need to, get a DNA swab. If you need to, report it. If you need to do the necessary things to keep yourself safe. You need to not hang around people who do drugs if you don't want to end up in these situations, because at some point down the line, it's almost an eventual cause of you getting raped. If you're around these types of people and these types of groups, like in the UK, it's guaranteed, almost pretty much guaranteed, that if you enter the chemsex world and scene over there, you're gonna get raped. And rape is not all like just brutality, but if you cannot make informed, conscious, clear consent, sober, it's rape. How much time do I have? Okay, we still got some time. So, youth under 30 are 2.5 times more likely to be targeted. Predators look for, quote, new to town or, quote, inexperienced travelers. Reporting crisis. Only 5 to 10% of these assaults are reported. The barriers are fear of the scene judging them, fear of drug possession charges, though Canada has the Good Samaritan Drug Overdose Act for some protection, and internalized shame. Vancouver's status as a quote-unquote gay hub makes it a high-traffic area for out-of-town quote-unquote sugar daddies. Platforms like Sniffies prioritize anonymity over safety. There is no verification system to cross-reference traveling predators. The Health Initiative for Men and Women Against Violence Against Women, who serve all genders, are the primary local response units, but they are reactive, not proactive. So revocable consent given while high is legally shaky and can be withdrawn at any time. If they won't meet at a coffee shop in Metro Vancouver first, the risk profile is 90% plus. And you are the owner of your body. Any person using a drug to change your quote-unquote wants is not a partner. They are a dealer predator. So I am going to pull up some resources for people within Metro Vancouver. If you are in another area that's not Metro Vancouver, you will likely have similar resources available, hopefully. And so that's the problem with the gay community. It's not gay people themselves, and it's not a sole, uniquely gay problem, but it's a very prevalent one. Sexual assault, drug abuse, predators preying on the vulnerable, lying, cheating, stealing. That's the issues with the gay community as I see it today. And I hope we can make a community effort to address these things and to make sure that younger people and the people who aren't born yet have a community that's one of respect, love, truth, and one where they don't have to fear being almost guaranteed to be sexually assaulted if they were to experiment with drugs. Even if they are high, it doesn't mean that they deserved or they're asking to get raped. So here are the resources. For if you get sexually assaulted, if you need to get STI tested, if you need to take preventatory medication, if you need to get, swabbed, like a rape kit, and they will swab inside you, and wherever they were in contact, and they will hold it. Most places will hold it for a year, so you don't have to make a decision right away. They'll hold it for you, so you have about a year, give or take, to decide what you want to do, if you want to report it. And if you're over the age of, I think it's 18 or 19 in BC, you're not legally required to report. If you are younger, it is taken obviously right to the police and to the Child Ministry of Family Services. So here are some. So in Vancouver, at Vancouver General Hospital, there's the Sexual Assault Service. You can find the hospital. You probably already know where it is, but it's 920 West 10th Avenue, Vancouver, BC. Their phone number is 604-875-3225, and you can text 604-313-9248. At UBC Hospital Urgent Care Center, SAS, which is Sexual Assault Service, you can find them at 2211 Westbrook Mall in Vancouver, BC. And you can phone them at 604-822-1588. And in North Vancouver, North Shore, they have the Lionsgate Hospital, and they are at 231 East 15th Street, North Vancouver, BC. And the Sexual Assault Response Program, you can call at 604-924-7676. And the Salal Sexual Violence Support Center, they have a 24-hour crisis line, which is 604-255-6344. And you can also call them toll-free at 1-877-392-7583. And this is for anywhere in BC, province-wide. Victim Link BC. You can phone them at 1-800-563-0808, or you can text 604-836-6381. And for battered women support services, in the Metro Vancouver crisis line is 604-687-1867, and they are on 1424 Commercial Drive, Vancouver, BC. And for male survivors of sexual abuse, this is the BC Society for Male Survivors of Sexual Abuse, you can call them at 604-682-6482, and they have a Surrey office, and you can call them at 672-963-9931. And here are some identity-specific resources in Metro Vancouver. The Health Initiative for Men, they are located at number 300 at 1033 Davies Street in Vancouver, BC, and their phone number is 604-488-1001. And there's Community, BC's Queer, Trans, and Two-Spirit Resource Center. They're at 1170 Butte Street, Vancouver, BC, and you can call them at 604-684-4449. And there's the QUS Indigenous Crisis Line, and there you can call toll-free 24/7, 1-800-588-8717. And there's also the Vancouver Aboriginal Friendship Center Society, and they are located at 1607-1607 East Hastings Street in Vancouver, BC, and you can call them at 604-251-4844. And for LGBTQIA. There's South Asian support is what it says. Sure, Vancouver, serving Metro Vancouver and Surrey. You can email them at info@surevancouver.com. That's info@SHERvancouver.com. And then Legal and Police Victim Services. The VPD Victim Services Unit is located at 2120 Canby Street, Vancouver, BC, and you can call them 604-717-2737. And for family services or victim services, you can find them at 201 at 1638 East Broadway, Vancouver, BC, and you can call them at 604-731-4951, and they have crisis intake at this number, which is 604-992-0683. And there's also Crime Victim Assistance Program, CVAP, in Vancouver. You can call them at 604-660-3888, 604-660-3888 or 888. Get help. There is help there, and there's not much in terms of preventatory measures, and those are measures that you must take for yourself. There's plenty of resources for you to go to in the event that something terrible does happen to you. You can go to a hospital, ask to speak to a sexual assault nurse, and they will take care of you and go from there. So this has been the Late Night Cool Down. I'm your host, Kyle Antoine, and I hope and I pray that everyone has a safe night and a safe day, and reach out for help if you need it.